have to get a license or some sort of driving official document. And so how will that work with automatic registration where licenses are issued to undocumented immigrants?
Sure. Well, so for voter registration, what actually matters is whether you're a citizen or not a citizen. It doesn't actually matter whether you're documented or not. You can't vote in federal elections if you're not a citizen. So in Michigan, you can, of course, get a driver's license if you're not a citizen, but you can only register to vote if you're a citizen. And so what we will do is we will only register those people who have demonstrated that they're citizens when they get their driver's license. The people who have shown non-citizen information or indicated they're not a citizen will not even be put into the registration process. In that respect, there already is voter registration at motor vehicle offices, and so they already have to deal with this issue, and so automatic registration will actually help make the process more secure by only registering people who are citizens.
Okay, this is from Kevin from Ortonville. Isn't all campaign finance reform really protection of incumbency and an attempt to abridge free speech? Will H.R. 1 benefit every office holder? I believe it said. You want to take that, Tiffany?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, so campaign finance reform actually is seeking to open up our democracy so that more people can run for office, not less. As a matter of fact, the H.R. 1 would make it to where small dollar donors had more power in our system rather than big money donors. Right now what's happening is it's not about equal speech and free speech, it's about whoever has the biggest checkbook gets the biggest say. That's not free speech. That is putting your hand on the scale quite a bit, right? So our goal, and what H.R. 1 does, is actually seeks to levelize that and to actually give some power back to the people.
I love this question because it's asking one of my favorite questions. What are the specific ways that citizens of the 8th District can impact the turnaround of the Citizens United case?
That's great. So actually, I met someone right before this who works for American Promise. You want to raise your hand? Where'd you go? There you are, over there. And they are actually working on a ballot measure here in Michigan to overturn Citizens United. I think what surprises a lot of people is that we've actually already passed ballot measures in about 20 states that seek to overturn Citizens United. But because it's a constitutional issue, we actually need to pass the constitutional amendment through the Congress and at the state level. So we need more people involved in this. We need you raising your voices. We need you voting for people like Congresswoman Slotkin who are dedicated to overturning Citizens United and working with good local organizations who are also doing the good work to overturn it.
And let me just add to that, because now I'm 9 weeks into being a new member of Congress. We get, depending on what's going on in the news, about 1,000 pieces of correspondence every 96 hours. We get 500 calls during that time. It goes up and down, but volume does matter, right? I'm sure many of you have participated in campaigns where it says, write your congressperson and write your senator. I will tell you, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, it certainly gets my attention when I get 500 letters on the same topic. And now, of course, when I first started as a congresswoman, I came in during the middle of a government shutdown, right? We were the first class to be sworn in during a government shutdown. So the majority of the correspondence was about either building the wall or not building the wall, right? It was pretty topical. And the news of the day tends to be popular, but let me tell you, in the first month, the second largest number of letters that I got was on a conservation program, actually that John Dingell helped spearhead, that just got signed by Donald Trump last week with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell right next to him. And that was a real important message for me, right? Because it wasn't in the news, it wasn't in my social media feed, none of the news outlets were talking about it, but my constituents were talking about it. And I would just say campaign finance reform doesn't have it's not like the Save Kittens people who are, they're on the street and they're calling me. we need to make sure that if you care about campaign finance, you're communicating that to me, to your senators, because it really does matter when you get volume in. This one I thought was interesting. Recent national threat assessments given to Congress warn that China and Russia can disrupt public utilities, including election systems. In Michigan, where over 80,000 voters in 2016 left the spot blank for president, right? They left it blank. How do we know that our elections here in Michigan and our machine totals were not hacked?
Well, there have been a lot of assessments that have been done by the Department of Homeland Security and others that have looked at attempts to infiltrate voting systems and voter registration systems. We don't have any evidence that they were actually able to infiltrate voting systems. One thing to understand about the voting machines is that there's not a central database that you can hack into and then get access to every voting machine in Michigan. So there's not a way to sort of hack into it like you could with a voter registration database. But we are concerned about efforts to hack into any of our election equipment. One of the things we're doing later this year is we're convening an election security task force, which is going to have experts from various security fields, and they're going to basically give us a diagnostic of all of our voter registration and voting machines to see where the security vulnerabilities are and what could go wrong. But we certainly do have a lot of problems with our voting machines, but there wasn't any evidence that that type of hacking happened with the machines.
Okay, there's a bunch here on similar topics. This one is about my way that I financed my campaign. So if this is a concern about ending big money in politics, please, according to OpenSecrets.com and other campaign finance disclosure websites, you, Elisa Slotkin, accepted PAC money, but you guys are saying you didn't. Explain. So let me make my stance on campaign finance very, very clear, because I know there was a lot of attention on this. So I have made the decision that I am not taking money from any corporate PAC. Doesn't matter what kind of corporation or series of corporations you represent. I am not taking that from the oil and gas industry, from pharmaceuticals, from whatever it is. I do take money from non-corporate, non-profit PACs. So that includes our unions. That includes things like League of Conservation Voters. It includes anyone who is not trying to make a profit by giving me money, right? And I know that's controversial. There are folks who believe in taking no PAC money in general. I will just say that we have a terrible campaign finance system right now, and I live within it. And in a perfect world, we could do lots of things. But in order to run and to win and to believe in that our system it has the ability to change, it was important to me to be able to finance on my campaign largely on individuals who are giving me personal donations, including some folks I've seen around the room, and not from corporate PACs. So I just wanted to make my position clear, since that was a question that we had been asked here. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think, we should also be really applauding the leadership of Congresswoman Slotkin. Prior to the 2018 election, there were less than 10 members of Congress who were not taking any corporate PAC money, right? And now there are 56 members of Congress not taking corporate PAC money. And that 56, and that's because candidates like Elisa Slotkin stood up and said, I'm not going to do it. And they showed, and they were leading by example. Now, why does it matter? Look, there is a massive difference between an ideological PAC that brings together small dollar donors who are trying to figure out a way to have a voice within the system, a voice that right now is frankly being drowned out, and a corporate PAC that we know is investing in campaigns and candidates for one simple reason. They put this in their own material. They are investing to help their bottom line, right? And that is currently what is happening. And instead, what Congresswoman Slotkin said is, look, I care about jobs for everyone, I care about business for everyone, I care about everyone having an equal voice. Right now, we know that that voice isn't equal, so I'm gonna take what leadership steps I can to level that playing field and to make sure that my voters know that every decision I sit at the table and make is for them. Sorry.
That's good. Okay, and I think this is a question that lets us talk about the Citizens Commission, and will Michigan's Independent Citizens Commission, as called for by Proposition 2, be activated in time to affect the 2020 census? So why don't you just go through the timeline on the Citizens Commission, and then I'll talk about the importance of us actually getting a real count in the census.
So that's a really interesting question. The proposal basically calls for the commission to convene after the census in 2020. So we do districts every 10 years. We wait for the census data, and then we use that census data to draw the next set of maps. So under the constitutional amendment, what will happen is we will get the census data, hopefully, and then the commission will then convene later in 2020 and start drawing the maps that will go into effect. The first major election that those maps will be in effect is 2022. In order for that to happen, though, we need to have good census data because we have to know how to count people and we have to know where they live. Currently, basically the timeline that the commission follows is so that it can convene as quickly as possible as soon as we have that census data, go through all the possible map combinations, and get a set of maps that are fair, and then have those in time that we can do all the things we need to get ready for the 2022 election. But in order to do that, we need to have complete and timely census data.
Yeah, so I just want to make a gratuitous comment about the census and how important it is to Michigan, that we actually fill this out and count everyone. So I believe 42% of Michigan's budget is federal money. So if we don't accurately count, it is like shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of getting that federal money. And we know from, and it was in the news even last week, that our birth rate is going down here in Michigan. We are declining in population. We are likely to actually lose a congressional seat after the next census in 2022. So it is even more important that we count every single person, particularly underrepresented communities that often get overlooked with the census. So that was just my gratuitous plug. We will have fewer offices than we had in 2010 to count us here in Michigan. Because of our declining population, they are now moving a number of the big offices to Chicago, and we are kind of being handled by Chicago. So I am deputizing each of you to start spreading the gospel on the importance of filling out the forms. The most common mistake on census forms is people forget to count their children under 5, right? So basic things. So this is my plea that when we come around to census, please do your part, spread the word to your colleagues, your neighbors, so that we actually get what we deserve here in Michigan in terms of federal funds. Okay, back to regular programming. Sorry. Okay,